my name is Lauren, and today I'm going to be talking more about schizophrenia and relationships. So, deep friendships and romance are fully within reach for people living with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. Having nurturing relationships also helps with my self-acceptance. So, when other people accept me, it makes it a little bit easier for me to accept myself. So, when talking about relationships, I guess let's start with the very beginning. So, it's important to work on socialization in order to be able to meet people and to be able to sustain relationships in a meaningful way. So in order to do this, you can work with your psychiatrist in order to figure out which medications will help to mitigate or reduce your symptoms as much as possible. Then it can be useful to work with a therapist to build skills to form and keep new relationships. And then it's also really important to be able to practice this socialization. So this can be in the form of at your job, at school, with a club that you might join, or just different forms of exercising socialization. So these aspects of practicing socialization really apply to everyone. I'm just kind of going over them because sometimes socialization can be a little bit more difficult for people living with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. Learning how to meaningfully engage with and socialize with other people is a really important part in engaging in different relationships, both romantically and with friends. So the way people with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder meet people is the exact same way as anyone else meets people. So it can be through bumping into someone on the street and striking up a conversation. It can be meeting them through friends. It can be through online dating. It can be a variety of different ways that are no different from anyone else. So once you've met someone, something that comes up quite often is when to disclose about your diagnosis. So a lot of people that I've heard anyway say that a good rule of thumb is to wait at least a couple months before disclosing. But I think that it really matters more on how you feel with the person. So if you feel safe in disclosing your illness, and if you feel like you're going to be met with acceptance and compassion and love in return. So I'm fully aware that it can be a really, really daunting or scary thing to do, to think about telling someone who you're building a new relationship with about your diagnosis of schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, or of a mental illness in general. I know for me, when I was dating, that was a really big fear of mine, was, is this person still going to accept me? Is this person still going to want to be with me? Will they think differently of me? Will this relationship end? Just a lot of thoughts racing around about how this person was going to interpret what I was going to tell them. It's really important to realize, though, that you should be with someone who accepts you for who you are. So when you do disclose, if they don't accept you, that's fine. Move on. And if they do accept you, then that's great. And that's what you deserve. So once you've disclosed to your partner that you have an illness, such as schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, there are a lot of benefits to being in a relationship that I'll just kind of touch on. But I just want to introduce someone who is going to help me in talking a little bit more about this. My current partner, my boyfriend, Rob.
So hi, I'm Rob, and I'm Lauren's partner, and we've been together for about 10 months.
Mm-hmm. So like I was mentioning, there are benefits to being in a romantic relationship that are kind of protective factors for people living with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder.
So I think that, one of those protective factors is just that having somebody in your life that is close to you and kind of knows what's going on with you on just like a day-to-day basis. That's probably like one thing.
Yeah, for sure. So just having someone that I can check in with all the time with, and who is there to check in with me, and just kind of is able to see any discrepancies in my behavior that may come up, that may be warning signs or that sort of thing, is really helpful and a protective factor. Also, like I mentioned before, if you have someone who accepts you and loves you for who you are, it really helps with the self-acceptance piece. So being in a relationship that is very loving and fulfilling, in turn helps with my own self-acceptance and with my own self-love and self-compassion. Also, having someone else to focus on and to take care of kind of helps me to get out of my own headspace about my own illness and whatnot. So having someone else to look after and to care about is really helpful and is another protective factor. So another really important thing to talk about when you're in a relationship with someone with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder is how to manage a relapse. So we've discussed between ourselves different steps that we're going to take when warning signs are coming up or when we're concerned about psychosis occurring again. So these can include talking about things like who to call for additional support, or when is the point where we will go to the hospital.
And I also have kids, so also talking about contingency plans about what to do with the kids.
So your plans for what to include in how to manage your relapse may look different, but those are just some examples of things to consider when you're talking about it with your partner.
So I think one of the things that's probably important to talk about with respect to relationships here is just the difficulties that, or I guess the unique challenges
that come about with having schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder as present in a relationship. So I think one of these things, or an example of one of these difficulties, is when I'm not feeling great, I tend to withdraw, or my behavior just changes in different ways like that. And I think sometimes Rob can get the impression or feeling that that's as a result of something that he did, or a result of something that he said or is, or anything like that. But it's really not about him. And it's really important to know that when your partner is exhibiting behaviors that are different from the norm, it's quite oftentimes not about you.
So it's only kind of recently that Lauren has been more public about her diagnosis. Early on in our relationship, it had been mainly like your close family and friends that knew. And, we kind of had to go through the process of telling my friends and family, and that could have gone smoother. But I think that stigma played a big role in terms of that being a more complicated situation than I think it needed to be. If you could just tell somebody, oh, they have this diagnosis, and that that other person would have the same kind of acceptance that I had, I think that it wouldn't be a big deal in terms of telling people.
Yeah. To that same effect, though, having someone to kind of go through that with and to face the stigma and challenges associated with it is really helpful and really beneficial for me. I'm sorry you got dragged into facing stigma with me, but it's really nice to have you with me.
It's nice to, I think, understand the challenge that you face. One of the challenges that I faced early on, I think, relatively early on, was with respect to medication. And I didn't really know how to best support her with that because, one of the challenges that she has is medication adherence. I didn't want to take it personally when she was she didn't want to take medication. But at the same time, I wanted her to kind of stick to her medication.
But you did take it personally at first.
I did, yeah. And I think actually what helped me was seeing, I went to a therapy session, one of her therapy sessions with her, and seeing how her therapist handled her medication inadherence.
Aversion to medication.
Okay. Seeing how her therapist handled that in terms of just being really empathetic and really letting her know that it's her choice. And I think that's what it took for me too, is understanding, of course, it's her choice. And, I believe that it is best when you are taking your medication, but I fully respect that it's your choice. And I think that's what it takes with respect to medication, is being really supportive and encouraging and, listing out the benefits and the reasons why they should take their medication, but really not forcing them to do it and understanding that it is their choice.
Yeah, it was really helpful when that shift occurred. So when he approached the difficulty around medications with more empathy and just more empowerment, essentially, too. He was encouraging me to make my own decision about it. And he told me how he felt and what he thought about taking the medication, but ultimately it was up to me, and he made that clear. So that was really helpful. So these are just a few of the challenges that we've faced already, and we know that there are more that are probably going to come up as the course of our relationship matures. But I think that a really big takeaway is to just have really open communication with your partner. Therapy helps a lot with the realizations, such as the one around medication and whatnot. And yeah, open communication with your partner goes a long way.
So I think that it's important to point out that just like Lauren isn't defined by her diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, our relationship also isn't defined by that. And, it can definitely, I think, at points seem like a little overwhelming in terms of like the challenges, but that our relationship is much larger in scope than just the challenges that we're dealing with. And it's a real relationship the way that any, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I think I was on the right track a minute.
You're on the right track.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, like our relationship is so much more than just this illness, and there are complexities to our relationship as with any other relationship. So next, we're just going to give a few tips for partners of people living with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. So the first tip is to find a support group. So Rob hasn't done this yet, but it is really helpful. And I know that support groups have helped me tremendously. So I'm sure that they would help partners of people living with the illness tremendously as well.
I've gone to support groups with her and attended like her Schizophrenia Society meetings with her. So I would say that I'm quite present in like your life with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Another thing that can be useful is couples therapy, and not approaching this from the perspective that there's anything wrong with your relationship, but just understanding that the diagnosis of schizophrenia is kind of an additional thing to manage in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. There are things that may come up as a result of the illness that other couples may not need to deal with. And so just having a little bit more of a precautionary take to things and just engaging in therapy right off the bat can really go a long way.
I think another thing that's important as a partner to someone with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder is to make sure that you are still taking care of yourself, taking time for yourself, whether that be spending time with friends or engaging in hobbies. It's just really important to make sure that you are also still taking care of yourself. Okay, thank you so much for letting me be in this video.
Thank you.
I'll let you get on with this.
Okay, thank you. I love you. Another thing that I've found helpful in relationships is to approach it sometimes with a sense of humor. So this may sound a little counterintuitive because you don't want the person to be like making light of or making fun of you or being disrespectful or patronizing or anything like that. But I feel like just approaching the illness sometimes with a bit more of a lighter approach and just being able to laugh things off with your partner can really go a long way. So when I was first exhibiting symptoms, I was in a relationship at the time, and about a month or so after we ended the relationship, I was finally diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. So the lead up portion of the diagnosis I was in a relationship for. I think that it definitely played a role in the ending of our relationship. However, there were other factors as well. So oftentimes before someone is given a diagnosis of schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, there is a period of turmoil where they're just kind of trying to figure out what the symptoms they're experiencing mean, what is happening to them, and this can take a toll on relationships. So when neither partner really knows a lot about the diagnosis or knows that there is a diagnosis, it creates a lot of room for misunderstanding and hurt feelings oftentimes. This is one of the reasons why seeking out treatment as early as possible can be really beneficial in various aspects of your life, such as with relationships. Having the diagnosis for several years now, I feel has better equipped me to be a partner and to deal with my illness in the context of a romantic relationship. So in summary, I guess I just want to convey that romantic relationships are possible for people living with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder, and people living with the illness are fully capable of engaging in meaningful and fulfilling relationships. Ellen Sachs says that with effort, medication, and therapy, you can have good friends and relationships, and I really believe this to be true. So thanks so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please give us a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe. Thanks again for watching and have a great day. Bye.
Is that the thumbnail for this one?
Yeah.